I'm going to give a little talk on the tools of the trade. When you've done your soldering and you need to file it or sand it back, if you've done a good job, you should never need anything more than a number 2 cut flat hand file and 400 grade sandpaper on your sanding stick. Now, the mistake I see a lot of people make is they'll take a piece of sandpaper and they'll hold it in their hand and do this. That's counterproductive, because anytime you're doing this, the material is just following the curve in the middle. It'll never be flat. If you use a sanding stick or an emery stick, if you look at this, it will leave a flat surface. And if you're unsure, what you do is, after you sand it back one way, you turn it 90 degrees and you sand it again. And this will actually show you whether there are any high spots or not. But this is the only way to take the high spots out of a piece of material and to make it perfectly flat, so that when you polish it, it'll have a mirror finish. If you don't use one of these and you use the sandpaper on your fingers, it will always have a ripple effect. So get used to using a sanding stick. I make round ones also for the inside of a surface. Now, on my bench, I've got all of the different grades of sandpaper. I've got all of the different files that go from a 0, which is coarse, to a number 8. I've got the jeweler's files in both number 2 cut and number 4 cut, but truthfully, the tools I use the most are a number 2 cut flat hand file, a number 2 cut half round ring file, and they call it a ring file because it's narrow enough it'll fit inside a ring and it won't hit the edges of the inside of the ring. And the 2 jeweler's files that I use a number 2 cut barrette file, and that's because it has a thin edge and it'll let me get in close to areas, and a number 2 cut round. And those are basically the cleanup tools I use. I do use the medium grit discs, because it's easy to get small areas. This on a pendant drill, it's easy to get small areas tidied up. And then I always go back to my sanding stick. So make this your best friend. Now, saying that, even if you're working on a curved surface, use a sanding stick. And if you follow the curve, when you're finished, you'll have an easily polishable piece that's basically smooth, no ripples. This can be your best friend. And like I say, I only use 400 grade paper, and then I go straight to Tripoli from there. When you're using a micromotor or a pendant drill, in this case, I've got what they call a cylinder burr or a parallel burr. I'll zoom in. Now, when you're using something like this, it's quite aggressive, and if you spin this up, it'll always try to jump around the edge, and it'll usually make more of a mess than not. So what you do is, if you brace your hands tightly together, I always brace one hand against the other so that I'm in control. And if you do that, you can quite easily make sure that this doesn't jump around where you don't want it. Now, the way this turns, it will always try to jump forward. brace your hands together. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're polishing with a polishing buff or using a burr. Brace your hands together and you'll always be in control. So you can see I've got my fingers against my fingers here. If you don't do that and you're just polishing out here in the air or you're grinding in the air, this will always jump over the edge. And when it does that, it'll always make more cleanup for you to do.